From the William B. Travis Building in Austin, Texas, we're keeping Texas energy on track. Here's your host, Bryce Doobie.
Welcome to Texas Energy on Track, the official podcast of the Railroad Commission of Texas. I am your host, Bryce Doobie, joined by my co-host and producer, Nick Cranock. Nick, how are you doing?
Doing great. Always happy to get back here in the studio. A lot of people are listening and that we're able to get a lot of cool information out there, especially this one. I'm excited about this one. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah, a lot of times we don't necessarily talk on our episodes about dates and times. They're very evergreen types of topics and things, but this is a significant one. We're recording this one in April. It's going to air in April because this year is the 135th anniversary of the Railroad Commission. We were founded all the way back in 1891. So we are thrilled, honored, and privileged to be joined today by Wei Wang, the Executive Director of the Railroad Commission. Sir, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I think just a brief introduction about yourself for the folks who may not know who you are. You're the Executive Director of the Railroad Commission. How long have you been with the RRC, and what is your sort of roles and responsibilities?
So I've been with the agency since 2013, so coming up 13 years. I was appointed the interim director in October 2017. April 2018 is when the commissioners at the time appointed me the executive director of the agency. I was previously a CFO.
And prior to that, were you coming in over from industry or what's sort of your professional background?
I was actually at the governor's office for a few years, and prior to that, I was with a national consulting CPA firm, and I started my career in the healthcare industry in Boston, Massachusetts, and I moved to Texas. You know, I bought a cup from the Capitol gift shop that has a quote from David Crockett that says, "Y'all can go to hell, I'll go to Texas."
I think everyone in the room right now, Virginia, West Virginia. I think it's a kind of thing you get here and you're like, this stay in here.
Yeah, it's a great place to be. Yeah.
As executive director, what's sort of a typical day or day-to-day life look like for you?
Well, as you guys know, we also have 3 statewide elected commissioners. So the commissioner set the policy for the agency, and my job is to implement the policy. You know, you probably heard me saying this all the time. Whenever we have an all-hands meeting, I say my job is very easy. It is to make sure y'all have what you need to do yours. So, but that entails a lot of things: the IT system, the equipment, the trucks, and the training. And also the process in place, internal controls we have in place. So my goal has been making the agency more efficient, how to save money and how to be more efficient with our turnaround time for permit applications. To give you one example, in 2019, I took a training with UT. I came back. I challenged our oil and gas division. I said, it's taking us too long to issue a permit for one particular type of permit. Can we use AI? So we're actually one of the first agencies in the state that use AI for our permitting. So now it takes about 20 days to issue a permit. Provided the permit has all the information.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's one thing we've talked about with some of our other guests. I mean, there's so many different types of permits and the turnaround, and like with the new things we're seeing with Class 6, there's a lot of really interesting review processes with all of these. So it's neat to see how we're adapting all of that. I know looking at some of the other technologies and things we've done, I know with like digitization of records and all that, I think, has that really been, since you've been here, one of the biggest changes that you've seen, just how much we're moving forward with technology?
Definitely. So when I first got here, my role was the chief auditor, and the director at the time sent me downstairs to oil and gas and do a review. So I discovered that for half a day, we couldn't use our drilling permit system. So we had to stay out of the system and allow the industry to use it because our system was so antiquated, it couldn't handle that many users. Obviously, it's not an efficient process. So Commissioner Craddock, one of her goals was to change our IT system. And so we started our mainframe transformation project under her direction, and she was able to get support from the legislature and the appropriation for us. So in 2019 is when we started that mainframe transformation. It's been on track, under budget, so we think we can retire our mainframe system finally in about 2-3 years. So if we can do that, that would be a huge win for not only our agency, but the general public and the industry we regulate. IT system, as one example, is where we have been spearheading the changes within the agency to become more efficient.
Yeah, I know that's one we always hear a lot of folks talk about. It's always sort of those interesting things that we've seen. I know when we were talking with Leslie Savage, well, she's been here for many years, and she was like, oh, it was like pencil and paper and doing everything. So it's really interesting to hear the perspective and kind of that continuing trend from folks about just how much we've, even in the past decade or so, really transformed the efficiency of the agency. We were founded in 1891 to originally regulate railroads. It's in our name. Even though what we regulate has changed, the mission has more or less stayed the same, as providing regulation to industry. What's sort of your take on that? How do you view that?
Well, going back in time, 1891, so 135 years ago, Governor James Hogg signed the law that established the Railroad Commission. And a few years after that, the commissioners became elected positions. And in the early teens of last century, so the legislature gave the agency the responsibility to regulate rate setting for rail cars. Railway was used for transportation purposes for commodities. And so naturally, after 10, 15 years, the legislature gave the Railroad Commission the jurisdiction over pipeline transportation rate, and that expanded over oil and gas, liquefied petroleum gas, CNG, compressed natural gas. Recently, we're given the authority over closed-loop geothermal and hydrogen. The legislature clarified that we have jurisdiction over hydrogen transportation and underground storage. And so over the years, you can see the legislature has given this agency more and more responsibilities, mainly focused on energy production and transportation. Along that vein, this agency has been tasked with, in addition to what I just mentioned, the gas utility rates for gas utility pipelines. Gas Services Department, they regulate the rates for residential, commercial, industrial customers, for local distribution companies for natural gas. So the gas we use at our house, the rates, we have original jurisdiction in rural area. In municipalities, the cities would have the original jurisdiction. We serve as the appellate court. If they do make a decision, they can file a case in front of the commission.
And I know that's one that we are definitely looking forward to doing an episode on in the future, just talking, because there's so many ins and outs of on that particular, on every topic.
Yeah,
honestly.
Over 135 years, our jurisdiction has grown tremendously. And the way I look at it is because Texas has been the capital of energy production, whether it's oil and gas, natural gas, or hydrogen. So then, as newer technology, the industry getting into newer form of energy, as a regulator, when tasked with by the legislature, we start looking into those newer technologies. So I go to some of the industry conferences and summit every year, and I hear different topics being discussed. This year, the hot topics are data center. That's a big thing. A lot of data center or developers are coming to Texas, and we have abundance of natural gas, and we have abundance of produced water. So if we can recycle that produced water and natural gas to generate electricity, and we have the know-how, we have the workforce in Texas. So this is a prime destination, in my view, for future data center and AI.
And as we're looking at all of that with natural gas and data centers and all of these types of things, how do, again, we enforce the policy from the commissioners and things. How do you really view that balance with economic development, public safety, environmental responsibility? How do all those pieces really play together in your eyes?
Well, all three are important to us because there are in our mission statement. So whenever I do new employee orientation, I actually have a slide for our mission statement. If you can remember all the long paragraph, at least remember the keywords: economy, safety, natural resources. So those are our concerns. And to translate that for our employees, I also put a vision statement. So what's the vision? We do our job every day. And so what goes beyond that? And our vision of this agency is to enable stable, predictable, safe energy for the well-being of all Texans and beyond. The and beyond part is because a lot of the products we produce here gets exported globally. So, that kind of put into perspective that what we do here in Austin or in our district offices have profound impact on the state, on the country, and globally as well, on everybody's life, because we all use natural gas or oil products one way or another, knowing or not knowing. I have to give credit to our Office of Public Engagement, because they go to some conferences, they'll lay out some petroleum products for little kids, school-age kids, and say, pick the one that are made from oil products. It's actually a trick question because everything on the table was made. The glasses I wear, or, a plastic. There are a lot of things that people don't know are made of petroleum products.
I think I was at an elementary school recently for a career day, and it had that same pitch with the kids and started talking. It was like, plastic chair you're sitting in. It's like when your parents cook and you see the blue fire come out of the oven. And they're like, oh, wow. They were just, I don't think it really dawned on them. You see I showed them a picture of a pump jack, and they were like, oh yeah, I know what that, I've seen that before. And they didn't realize all of these things are all kind of tied together.
Absolutely. And, I think our commissioner has been focusing on transparency in the last few years. Not only we have digitized over 100 million records, we have a library on 10th floor, and we used to have a lot of consultants come here and look at our records. And now it's all available online. With a click of a mouse, and you can see all the records we have. And we built our docket management system, cases, so you can file a docket online. You don't have to come here through docket services and file your docket, and you can do research online. And not only that, the commissioners also established the Office of Public Engagement a few years ago, 4 years ago. I think last year, Scott, our Director of Public Engagement, and his team has visited or hosted 50 events and made encounter with over 34,000 Texans. They have been to some smaller towns, and I'll be honest, some of the towns I never heard of, but they have traveled around the state, telling people, as our commissioners say, no matter what people call us, it doesn't change what we do, right? So our role does remain the same, and every 2 years we're given new responsibilities. So we have to do a good job because everybody relying on us, not just everybody, our friends or neighbor in Texas, but around the world. People rely on the product we produce here in Texas.
Absolutely. I know that's been the one thing just since I've been here looking through news reporting, the influx especially with LNG exports. It seems like that's going to be a really big frontier in the future, and seeing how all of that works.
Yeah. Like I remember a few years ago, 2018, I visited some countries in European countries, and they were not into buying American gas, and they have changed tremendously lately. So we're seeing a lot of countries building LNG import facilities. And so there's a huge expansion for LNG exporting in Texas. And our natural gas production, onshore production alone, has grown from 28 BCF a day to over 32, 33 BCF a day in the last 4 years. So in a matter of 4 years, we have produced 4 BCF more natural gas per day.
Which is, the B is for billion. As we continue to evolve, what do you see in your crystal ball next 10, 20 years for the RRC?
I think going back to 135 years, the agency going to continue to grow because we have grown. And it's the nature of the beast. The industry, the energy industry, going to have newer technology. We have to be in sync. Our regulation have to look at that and make sure that, how we started oil and gas was because a lot of people were drilling in East Texas. So we came out with spacing rule. And then we're the agency that originated the proration. This agency has been very innovative from the very beginning. 135 years later, we're all sitting here in the room and looking into the future. The energy industry is going to continue to grow. They're going to come out with newer technologies. Like, who knew, fracking will put us back on the map. So there are new challenges that the industry should continue to grow. As a regulator, we have to look. I'll go back to our vision is to ensure a safe, reliable, predictable energy for the well-being of all Texans. So our regulatory framework has to be predictable because investors are looking into that. And they want to know what they're getting themselves into. And we have a responsibility to the general public to make sure that natural resources, which we have abundance of, is produced in a responsible manner. in a safe manner. So as a public servant, regardless, I tell our employees, regardless which division you work in, the one unifying characteristic of everybody here is we are public servant. We're here to serve. So keep that in mind as we do our job on a daily basis.
The RRC is a fairly large team, and we're really spread out all over the state. What makes the people of the RRC really unique? What's something that you don't think people necessarily realize when they're talking about the staff at the Railroad Commission?
Well, a lot of the staff we have here used to work for the industry, so they brought with them a wealth of knowledge from the industry. They know the newest technology. But like what I was saying earlier is everybody have that mindset of public service. So we have people that used to serve as CEO for smaller operators. Toward the later part of their career, they decided to do public service because they want to give back. I really, respect that. I learn a lot from the people that I work with. We put them into positions where they can leverage their knowledge and train our folks. So we have over 1,000 people. It doesn't matter which division we work for. We all work for one agency. As a matter of fact, our culture statement is one agency, one team. We don't have silos here because, I also tell all our employees my job is to make their job easier. If there's ways we can make their job easier, either by leveraging resources from other or expertise in other division, we'll do that. This agency is also employee-centric because we believe in if you do well or do right with your employees, they'll treat your customers well.
If you're thinking about 135 years, late 1800s and then into the early 1900s, how much technology has changed from back then, where we were basically working on getting the oil in Texas and probably either keeping it here or throughout the United States. Now, the Railroad Commission is recognized worldwide. We have delegations that come from all over the world, not only from Alberta, but also we've had delegations from, I think, Japan, Australia, all over that come to Texas to see what the Railroad Commission does. And I think as executive director, that's going to make you feel pretty good about what we're able to accomplish, that we're getting that worldwide recognition.
We just hosted a delegation from Canada. What I remember from that conversation was when we told the member of delegation that it only take 2 to 3 days to get a drilling permit, if your application is, has everything we need, it will take 3 days. Everybody was surprised. I think Scott has gotten to a point that he enjoyed the reaction from people when he tell people that it takes 3 days to get a drilling permit. Because, obviously there are also other balance and checks. Once you drill the well, you have to file a completion report and you have to test your production, and we give you a proration, how many barrels you can produce. Again, it's the consistency, the predictability, so people, the investors, know what they're getting themselves into when they make the investment. So they will come to Texas knowing if I do everything right, I follow the rules, then I will get my permit, I can produce, I can thrive in Texas. And our role is to create that environment. We are the oldest regulatory agency in Texas. And this year, we also celebrate 250th anniversary of the country. And the Railroad Commission has been around for 135 years of that.
What is your favorite part of the job that you think most people wouldn't necessarily expect?
Well, it's never a dull day. When I first got this job, I think there are a lot of things I could do to make the agency more efficient, and I can help the people that work here to make their job easier. When I say my job is to make your job easier, I actually meant it. I think it's important that from an agency perspective, we're efficient, we're responsible for the dollars that the legislature gave us, that all Texans entrusted in us. With that, they give us performance measures. So my goal is to make sure we meet or exceed the performance measure every year. So as the agency continue to grow our jurisdiction over the industries. So what I enjoy is the new challenges coming up every day. How do I do my job to make sure we're up for the task, up for the challenges, become more efficient? When I leave this place, I truly believe I want to leave it a better place than I found it.
Sir, thank you so much for joining us. This is a really meaningful conversation. So it's great to be able to get your thoughts on all this as we reflect on the anniversary.
Yeah, thank you.
So Nick, happy 135th anniversary to the Railroad Commission.
Yes, I wasn't here for the beginning of it 135 years ago. I won't be here in the next 135 years. But yes, we're certainly celebrating. It's an incredible thing, as Wei mentioned, that we're the oldest regulatory agency in the state, and that's pretty cool. Well, probably like 135 years ago. This isn't just AM radio. So we're out there literally worldwide. You can listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio. We're on Audible, Amazon Alexa. We are there. So make sure that you hit subscribe. We'll get those notifications out, and you'll know when every other Wednesday when the episode comes out, you look at your phone. Oh, hey, cool. There's another podcast episode just as I'm ready to commute to work. So you can listen there. You can also find great information, rrc.texas.gov. You can check out. We have a lot of information and history there, as well as on X. We are at TXRRC, Facebook and Instagram, Railroad Commission of Texas. We're on LinkedIn, Railroad Commission of Texas. Also on YouTube, just search for Railroad Commission of Texas.
But as always, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Texas Energy on Track, the official podcast of the Railroad Commission of Texas, and we will talk to you all soon.